Welcome back, everybody, to another thrilling episode of Thrive Your Program with Coach 2J's. This is your host, Jeremy Jones, and today we're going to talk about the difference between a hip hinge and the dip for the push press. So specifically, we're going to be doing push presses as a strength movement, and then we're going to be doing some of these Russian kettlebell swings. And so remember, when we're doing, we want people to understand there's really kind of three primary different movement patterns we do with the hip. The first one, most you'll be familiar with as a squatting type movement pattern. Then there is the hinging type movement pattern, and then there is the dip. That person's really tall. Then there's the dip, which the dip drive, which is what we do also on the the cleans, the snatches, and push presses. I don't like that last person, but I don't know how to delete it. Let me try that again. So we've got squat, we've got hinge, and then we've got dip, right? So the squat movement pattern is obviously we're flexing the knee and the hip. We want to have a somewhat upright torso, but there's variance depending on the type of squat. The center of balance is always over the midfoot, no matter which one we're doing. And then this is one where we're moving the torso through a large range of motion. The hinge is where we're going to bend the knees minimally and we're going to hinge at the hip. This is our deadlifts and our kettlebell swings, and there's a few other movements that we do it on. And then, of course, when it comes to a clean, a snatch, a push press, and a jerk, we're going to do a minimal bend of the hips and the knee, and we're having a very upright torso, if not completely upright torso. And so these are all hip driving movements, and they have their own distinct styles. And so for today, what we want people to understand is that on a hip hinge movement, we're going to bend the knees minimally. There's going to be a lot of angle change through the hip here, and that's going to help us swing that kettlebell out. It's also going to helps us with deadlifts and things. Versus the dip that we do here, again, it's very minimal change of the angle of the hip and knee, and it's an upright. A very upright down and up. Now, what we tend to see is a lot of people will do a kettlebell swing, whether it's a Russian or American swing, and they like to do either a squat swing or they do a sort of dip swing. So they keep their torso upright, their eyes straight ahead, and then they just do a very short and shallow dip, and then they use their deltoids, the top of their shoulders, to kind of help make up the difference. So their shoulders get tired from the kettlebell swings up here, as opposed to their arms are just like ropes. They're not really doing any work. They're just attaching the load to the torso, and the hips are doing all the work on the kettlebell swings. So we just want to make sure that when people are doing the kettlebell swings that they're doing a proper hinge movement and they're not doing a dip movement. All right, so we've got our warm-up and then some shoulder stuff. Then we'll do some push presses. This will be probably the last. I'm going to include some push presses in the next strength focus, just to mix up the jerks, but we're not going to be doing a ton of push presses heavy while we're working on jerks in the next strength focus, so people can get a chance to work on them today, and then we'll do a percentage push press at least once within the next strength focus. And then we're pairing that up. We're going to give the lower body a little bit of a break. We've been doing a lot of lower body stuff, and we've got squats coming up heavy because it's our last week of the strength focus, so we're going to make sure their legs don't get taxed too bad. So a lot of arm stuff today. So it's this push press with a weighted strict pull up, which is more traditional sort of push pull split when it comes to a superset. And we want people to work on their progressions. So just remember that when people are doing their progressions, they need to be making it very challenging. It shouldn't be just like a super easy assisted pull up. Those reps should be very difficult. And you can see that this is also increasing or adjusting the load or difficulty each set. So they should be kind of doing like their fourth rep is to failure, right? They couldn't do a fifth rep, at least on some of these last couple sets, so that they're actually challenging their strength. Now, obviously, they could do band assisted. They could do they could use their barbell in the rack, right? So if their barbell's here and it's in the J cup, I like to have people hold where they're going to try to stay somewhat upright, and then their body hangs down here, and then they can have their legs on the floor. Usually you'll do like one leg on the floor, one leg up, and they can hang on the bar. You'll notice that they're hanging this way, so if they lean back, the bar goes into the rack, not the other way. Now, if they do these, they should again be really focusing on using their arms and a really slow eccentric. Another one they could do is a pause. So they could use their legs to get up, and then try to do a 3 to 5 second pause, 3 to 5 second pause, 3 to 5 second pause, 3 to 5 second pause. So they're going to go at the top, 3/4 of the way up, halfway up, 1/4 way up, right? So they get these pauses, and that sort of static work is really good for helping develop people's strict pull-ups or chin-ups. So that's another good option. But again, it should be very challenging. Instead of changing the load, which is always a little bit dicey when it comes to this, these legs and stuff and how much they're using their legs, just doing those static holds and slowing the movement down can increase the difficulty without increasing the load, and that's still going to provide some a stimulus to get stronger. Then we've got Googley Moogley. Instead of Great Googley Moogley, I named it Googley Moogley because I'll probably turn this into a longer metcon that I can call it Great Googley Moogley at some point. This is AM reps, so it's going to be 3 strict chin-ups, 3 Russian swings, 30 single unders, 3 strict chin-ups, 6 Russian swings, 30 double unders, 3 9 30, 3 12 30. So only the kettlebell swings are going up in reps. So the way this is going to work is people are going to struggle with these strict chin-ups after the first couple rounds, and then the kettlebell swings will start to take a lot longer time, and that's going to let those muscles recover somewhat. But they're going to keep their heart rate up because of the kettlebell swings and the single unders. A lot of people will still get stuck, on these. They'll start having to do singles on the chin-ups, and that's fine. I want this to be more of a strength movement, and then they can finish strong on the next 2 movements to keep their heart rate up and their reps up. Now, math is going to be tricky on this. If you saw the weekly overview video, I just give you a snapshot of some of the spreadsheet trickery that I have to do to calculate this stuff. We want people to finish around the fifth round, so that would be 9, 12, 15. So they should be trying to finish the 15 kettlebell swings and 30 double unders afterward as kind of a minimum. So that would be 5 rounds times 3, so that's 15 reps. That's kind of the minimum, and then we want them to maybe get as high as something like the 8th. So you can see here that round 3 is 117 reps, 162. So people might have to do a little bit of math if they want to track this. But ultimately, we're looking for that 5 to 8 rounds. And then because it is a strength and a short metcon day, I did add a cash out here. And if you can't get tired from doing 10 dumbbell thrusters in a 100-meter run for 4 minutes, you're doing something wrong. That's a pretty tough sprint. But it is important to remind people, even when it is something aggressive like this, to tell people, look, the cash outs are not designed to be a second metcon. There's something to keep moving and keep the heart rate elevated for an additional 4, 6, 8, 10 minutes. Because what will happen is they'll start to rest. The class will end. Their heart rate will start coming down, and then they'll do this workout, and then their heart rate will come back up again, and then they'll recover. So it's just to increase that cardiovascular capacity beyond what the metcon is. So they shouldn't be trying to redline it when they do these cash outs. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot, and thrive on.